Same old trouble, villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same.
Thank you, Vandello, and welcome back, everybody, for Season 4 of Graphically Novel. My name is Josh Wasta, a.k.a. Fallout Fieri, and with me, as always, is the light in the darkness, the man that is more than meets the eye, my Rodimus Prime. Wait, what? It's Ben. I don't know if I like this new intro.
I don't think I do either.
I decided that within Season 4, I'm going to be nice to Bear in my introduction.
Was that nice?
I don't know. I'm not sure if I appreciate this new.
Which canon?
And with us again, the lovely and talented, the Baronessa, Miss Jennifer Howland.
Thank you, Bear. And it's my distinct pleasure to introduce a returning guest, Sarah Michels, and her lovely spouse, Bree. Thank you for coming. We love having you guys on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks
for having us.
So, we reached out to 3. So this season will actually be catered, like chosen people. Instead of just asking people, hey, what would you like to do? We went out and found who we thought were either experts or would be good for the style of show that we were doing. And there is no one better for our Transformers episode than 3. And as an additional bonus, Sarah, I understand that you hadn't gone through all of the Transformers stuff before. So this was an opportunity for your husband to introduce the world in its glory to you.
I have been getting the world introduced to me, no matter how I felt about it, for a while now. And some aspects of it have been better than others, but that was actually in our wedding vows that I would support him even in the stuff that I didn't share with him. So he does it for some of my interests, and I get to do it for some of his, and I try not to ask embarrassing questions like which one's the tape deck one too often.
Which tape deck one? There's an Autobot and a Decepticon.
That is not fair. The tape deck one was one I could reliably identify.
So 3, we normally ask our new guests, and you have not been on the show before, what is your history with comic books? Coming up with it, and specifically get into Transformers, but how did you come into comics?
Wait. I just want to throw out, he's got issues. Finger guns, double barrels.
Well, my history with comic books, it goes back as far as I can remember. I was when I was first learning how to read, I was very young, and comic books were something that my mom and my grandmother liked to go garage sailing, and they would find them when they were out, and so it was something that you could buy out cheap, and it would entertain me, and it was something to help me learn how to read. So I started, strangely enough, on those comics that they're like basically tracts, the biblical comic books, the Christian comic books.
Oh,
Chick tracts?
Well, Chick tracts also, but these were they were actual full-size comic books, and they were the art on them was absolutely terrifying. But that was those were things that the Catholic worker house would sometimes just give away to people, and so the comic books were super duper cheap, and I'd flip through them and look at all the pictures, and I was learning the words, and so that was basically how I learned how to read. And then I got into superhero comics pretty much immediately after that.
So straight from Jesus to superhero. Awesome.
Yep.
It's just always been Jesus.
At least the Superman isn't that far. We all know that.
I was just gonna say.
It's true. Also, you do kind of look like Bad Bob, which is one of my favorite Chick tracts.
There are so many terrifying ones. I've got one of the ones that I've got is Alberto. I bought some after I became an adult because I thought it was so hilarious.
Darkest Dungeon was always my favorite, which was the anti D&D Chick tract. Where the chick character dies and then she commits suicide. They actually made a movie based on it a couple years ago. Have you?
Yes.
Is it as horrible as it looked?
It's uniquely. It's unique. My first DM, John Jenkins, showed that to me. And it's got Tom Hanks in it, if I'm remembering correctly.
You are actually thinking of Mazes and Monsters.
That's the one. Is this a different one? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, Darkest Dungeon was just done a couple of years ago, and it was based on the Chick tract.
Legit. Ooh. That's a different level. No,
It's a must
no,
watch.
I've not seen that film. Yikes.
I own Mace's Monsters on DVD.
That's an excellent flick.
It is not. It is not by any means. So speaking of flicks that aren't excellent, we watched a few different Transformers movies for this, and some of them were excellent. One of them was not. So we started with the 1985 Transformers animated movie. Is it 85? 87? 85. I'm remembering 85 for some reason. Yeah. And as we did with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we introduced Jenn slowly. So the ones we will be discussing are the cartoon from the 80s, specifically the movie, though I do have the first season, so I watched a few episodes that might bring up some things with that. The first Michael Bay Transformers movie, and Bumblebee. And actually, Jenn did watch Bumblebee before she watched anything else that was Transformers related, which probably now the best way to enter the experience.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That had to be very different. I'm very interested in hearing about that.
Well, I have to say that not like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, even the bad ones I enjoyed.
But you were talking to me the other day, and I wanted to make sure to bring this up. Why you identified more with Transformers than you did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
So, one of my first crushes and a show that I watched avidly as a child was Ultraman.
Oh.
So I do have an affinity with robot, I guess.
Great big giant robots and shoot lasers.
Yeah.
Affinity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Giant robots are amazing. You got
They
Ultraman, you got of course Voltron.
Right? Yep. And one of the things we found watching, so Marvel just on Disney Plus just released Marvel 616, which is pretty cool documentary series. The first episode is about the Japanese Spider-Man show that wasn't allowed to be in the United States for like a super long time. But one of the things in that, and I can't find anything I was researching to try and justify this guy's claims, the guy that made the toy, the car for Spider-Man, or Japanese Spider-Man, the car transformed. And he said he was the first person to make a toy that transformed
Into a robot.
This was not reciprocated on the Toys That Made Us episode on Transformers that I watched, so we'll leave that claim out there. But
Disputed history.
Yeah. But if you are interested in things like Transformers and how the Japanese culture in the 70s and 80s was changed and like packaged, those are the two shows that I'd recommend. I'd start with the Marvel 616 episode on Japanese Spider-Man, just because they were like, Marvel was like, yeah, sure, whatever you want to do with the property, just make sure it never comes to the United States. You could literally do whatever you want with it.
Was it the 70s or the 60s?
It was the 70s.
I thought it was the 60s.
Early 70s.
Okay.
Yeah. And then go ahead.
You can sell us books, just don't make sure that anybody else finds out about it.
Right. Well, it's because manga didn't translate over here, and American comics didn't translate over there, but they knew that there was the link between comic books, TV, and toys. Like Bandai had done a bang up job, doing all of that stuff. So, or early Bandai, whatever their name was before they became eventually Bandai.
Well, and what's interesting is when we were watching that episode, they also said that manga were popular with all ages, where in the 60s and 70s, comic books were not popular with adults in the United States. So it was a completely different culture, a culture that, I think now in the United States, adults are probably the primary consumers of comic books now.
Yeah, it's interesting, and now I know 3 loves this kind of like comic book trivia kind of stuff too, but it goes in like a roller coaster, because the 40s and 50s you're looking at World War II, comics were big with adults, and then for some reason there's the 60s and 70s are a low point, kind of comes back up in the 80s. I mean,
it's the 60s and 70s. Adults weren't reading comics; they were just doing drugs. You get enough acid in you, and you don't have to read comics to go to Fantasyland.
Yeah.
Also, good reading comics if you tried. Reading's hard. Anyway.
Yeah, the 40s, there were a lot more lifestyle comics in the States. There were, the romance comics. There were the military comic, cowboy comic. When with the 50s, you started getting there wasn't really even superheroes at that point. I mean, you had Superman and large and small of it, just about, And then the 60s is really when in the Silver Ages exploded with the superhero stuff in the States. But then because of that, the lifestyle comics kind of went away because they had to sell books and superheroes were selling.
So to bring it back to Transformers 3, did you watch Transformers like when it originally aired in the early 80s?
Yeah, I watched it 2 times a day. There was a whole episode in the afternoon after school, and the Bozo Show showed like 5 minutes of an old episode every morning before I went to school.
Yeah. After the grand prize game.
Yep.
I wanted that $100 bill and I wanted that bike.
Breakfast Sticks was so easy. I don't know how people could ever miss that.
Yeah, the only time I ever even got close to the grand prize game was at a Showbiz Pizza, so that was just a ticket. Okay, so I want to start this. So I'm going to go chronologically. So we're going to start with the 80s cartoon movie, which was for the kids. It was, oh my God, they're making a movie out of our favorite cartoon. For the adults and behind the scenes with Marvel, who owned the property, and with the toy manufacturers, the idea was to, and I didn't know this before, to kill off as many characters as we could to introduce our new line of characters so that we could sell new toys.
Yeah. Oh, God. Like the idea that we can also just introduce new toys was completely alien to them. We can't just introduce new characters. We got to get this other stuff off the shelf.
Right. So, Bear, did you watch it originally, like in the theaters as a kid?
I lived in rural South Dakota, so getting to the theaters was pretty much a rarity. But as soon as we saw it available on video, like we had a copy.
All right,
and
so
I wore that cassette tape out.
Wait, point of order. This existed before I did. So it was released in theaters. This was not a television special. This was
100% in theaters, and in fact, it hit the year's top 20. Yeah,
Wow.
Like it was a box office. Like it was
a toy commercial. It was a box office smash. Intricately plotted toy commercial.
It would have played so much better if it would have been a TV special because of the absolute wailing of the children in the theaters. It was terrifying. I was among them. All of the kids were screaming and crying.
That was going to be my next question. Is 3 and Bear? Because I did. Did you cry at the death of Optimus Prime first time you watched?
Oh yeah.
I don't think I did. I think I was just kind of in shock. Like mom, what's going on? Like, why did he turn gray?
See, I specifically remember asking my mom when I died, will I turn gray?
Whoa.
Eventually.
What do you say to that as a parent? Like, kinda, but man, I don't want to go down this road with you. Like,
it was Carmen. She's like, no, don't be stupid.
Stop crying.
Yeah,
it's a cartoon.
It's cartoon. Like, cartoons aren't real. Stop it.
Oh, I cried twice because after he died, I spent the whole rest of the movie going, well, they're going to bring him back somehow. It'll be amazing, And then the credits roll, and they just ripped the wound open again.
Right?
No, I mean, the credits rolled, and by then Ultra Magnus was dead too, and you're just like,
right.
Oh my God.
Well, the first 5 minutes, you watch so much death. You're like, you've never seen so much death, and you're just stunned. It was noisy, the amount of crying that was going. It was like you could hardly hear the movie.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
And so I just need to tell you that wading into this emotional quagmire with your grown-ass husband when, like, none of these toys have meaning to you, like, you didn't just cry as a child. I'm saying it.
Yeah. Well, no, it's got that emotional core.
When was the movie released?
85.
85. Okay, that explains it.
Yeah.
I was a teenager, and this was not on my radar.
Yeah. So, for the people that, for Sarah and Jenn, who had not delved into this world as deeply before, What was the one thing, because I know what Jen's answer is, what was the one thing that surprised you the most about the cartoon movie?
All right, it's been a while since I've watched that fully. It was just a very uncomfortable experience because the movie, and I'm not even trying to throw shade at my darling husband. It was just that the movie really predicated the emotional impact on you having watched these series for years as a child. I also watched the movie Serenity before I watched any Firefly, and by the time, spoiler alert, Wash died, I cared about that character in Serenity. I wish I could say the same about Optimus in the Transformers movie, but it was not quite as well established because they were busy killing off, as we've mentioned, other characters that I also wasn't invested in. So that was for me, that was the core, and it was great hearing that this was we have to clear the shelves production. Like that's so fantastic to me, and completely explains why we don't have time to explain any of these characters to you. We just have to slaughter them, and very difficult to dive into that. So I guess that was the surprise to me, was the death that to me was meaningless and uncomfortably was clearly not for the love of my life. So levels.
It was like the whole thing was meaningless because they weren't doing it for anything to advance the plot.
Right.
It was just get them out.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess it was like the only character arc they really had was Rodimus.
Yeah.
Because if you got Judd Nelson, you got to use Judd Nelson to his full.
Yeah.
So, Jen, what was the most surprising to you?
Well, frankly, you remember something that I don't, because what were
the opening credits is what I'm remembering, because you were like, who is in this?
Oh, right.
What is happening?
That's right. Oh my God. I totally forgot about that. Like the opening credits were rolling and I'm like, wait, how did they get these people to be in this movie? Oh my God. I think there was a point where I actually stood up and screamed.
It was Orson Welles.
Yeah. I was like, no, how is this possible? And then I remembered money.
Yeah. And Orson Welles is a giant talking butthole.
Yeah.
So
now that you mentioned that was striking to me also. Like, what?
Yeah.
What the hell?
They got me more?
So
yeah, right?
The only correlation I can make that it just doesn't make sense and it means money is the cast of the movie for Cats. Oh my God. How did they get these amazing actors to do this stupid movie?
So Jen and I...
That has got to have something to do with Money's best friend, drugs.
Yes. So I'm a big fan of multiple different podcasts, which is why I started my own. But one of my favorites is called How Did This Get Made, which is Paul Scheer, his wife, June Renee Layfield.
Yeah, I think so.
And Jason Mantzoukas going through movies that there is no reason they should have been made. Like, I got hooked on them because they did an episode on Hudson Hawk, and I love that movie, but I understand that it is crack mad. But they did Cats, and if you don't know who Jason Mantzoukas is, he's a character actor. He's been on like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He was on A Good Place. He's
Rafi and Derek. We love
yes,
Jason Mantzoukas.
He's the crazy Greek guy that shows up in just about everything now. But he's a fantastic character actor. But he basically started the show by being like, "This was an assault. I feel assaulted. I do not like how I am feeling right now. I had to take a shower. I watched Cats.
I don't feel safe.
I don't feel safe." And hearing somebody like Jason Mantzoukas saying that, I'm like, okay, now I gotta watch it. It's also the story of how Jen and I discovered our 3-bottle limit when it comes to wine. Two's fine. You're having a good time.
Yep.
Maybe even like a nightcap afterwards if you have like one shot of liquor in a 3 bottles of wine is not going to be a great night. It does not even matter if you start at like 5 p.m.
No. It's fine for the night.
Right. It's the next day.
It's the next day.
But yeah, Cats was an experience. Cats. Ooh. Yeah.
And I bet the 3 bottles weren't enough, really.
Well, you're right, 3.
Halfway through, we were like, this would have been better with buttholes. Talking buttholes with the voice of Orson Welles.
There we go. Bring us back. Bring us right back with the talking butthole.
So I'm going to throw the comic book series in before we get to the Michael Bay Transformers. So we read on 3's suggestion the Generation 1. So the first 6 issues out of IDW when they kind of took over the series, comic series.
I just wanted to clarify that originally that was Dreamwave that did that.
Right.
It was originally, and then IDW purchased the property off of them.
Right.
But,
and so all reissues and have the IDW label on them. They're also very expensive to get if you just want to get a hard copy. They are difficult to find and very expensive.
I wasn't aware of that until Bear told me about that. I scored mine from Half Price Books for like next to nothing, and I almost bought a hard copy they had there for like $20.
Oh, nice. Yeah, they're like $70 now.
Well then.
Yeah. So we went ahead and fired up our Comixology, and we read them digitally.
Which I prefer anyway.
Right. So let's talk about this, because this comic series, I had read some of the original Marvel stuff, and the original Marvel stuff in the 80s was a lot more like the cartoon. It was a lot more, other than the movie of the cartoon. It was a lot more like, hey, we're Autobots, so we're trying to stop the Decepticons, and there's Energon cubes, and there's like all this stuff. And then like you start in the comic, and this is the most mild of spoilers because it's literally on the first couple pages. Optimus Prime runs into Daniel, Spike's son, and Daniel's like, "You killed my father." And you're like, "Whoa, what happened?" So obviously a very different tonal shift into a more adult comic. So 3, can you talk a little bit about why you chose, out of, I'm sure, the grand dearth of Transformers comics that have been happening since the 80s, why you chose this one as our introductory?
Yeah, this particular book, to me, it had both the characters and sort of the aesthetic that you're more familiar with from the original material, from the original Marvel comics. Certainly not the toys, but then again, the toys didn't look like anything because they were just convenience. They were other properties anyway. But you're used to the aesthetic and the way that these characters look and have already been built. But this is the first time that you really get to see them from a more adult perspective. It's the first time that they go into any more political kind of leanings or anything like that.
Hashtag, I did send you hashtag Megatron was right. Halfway through me reading this, and Megatron starts to make some very, very captivating points about humanity, and I'm like, I can't argue with you, Megatron.
Right? Exactly.
So, thoughts on the comic from the rest of our panel? We have our question at the end. Will you continue reading? But what were your impressions coming out?
I was impressed with it. I mean, it was a quick read. I mean, the issues were pretty short, but I think that the storyline was interesting. It kept me engaged, and that's another reason why it was a quick read for me. It reminded me, it had the like feeling of like Avengers movies or Captain America, like that level of political intrigue and what have you, which I was surprised. I didn't expect. So kudos, 3. I enjoyed reading them.
I'm glad to hear.
Yeah, I also very much enjoy them. I was really kind of astonished at and I don't know if it was just because it was digital, but the vibrancy of the color. Like, it really reminded me of, just the toys back in the day. Everything bright, shiny, flashy. The plot line was excellent. I had actually subscribed to the Transformers comic. I don't remember which series it was. I think it was older than these, which is why, and I had read up through the point where they introduced the Allspark, which is why I was so damn upset with the movie. I'm like, no, we don't have the Allspark, and we are not keeping it inside the Hoover Dam. What the hell is this? I was just angry.
So before
the comic itself that we read was amazing. Like, I definitely want to get my hands on more of that.
Sarah, I specifically wanted to ask you, because this is kind of a follow-up to your episode last season with Guardians of the Galaxy, where we read Cancerverse comics, and Guardians of the Galaxy in space. And at that time, you talked pretty in depth about how you are more of an auditory person, and visual medium generally is not what translates well for you. And also that Guardians of the Galaxy comic was very dark, not dark tonally, like dark.
Literally, visually dark. Yes.
Yes. And so I'm curious your thoughts on this, especially when one of the other complaints you had, that we all had, about the Guardians of the Galaxy comic was there's so many characters just thrown at you and you were expected to know who the hell they were. And this also does that.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. At the risk of sounding jaded, I was kind of used to the Transformers property doing that to me, because that's all they do in the movie. And that's what she said. There were definitely times reading this comic when I thought, like, legit to myself, comic full of robot cars is a definite way to punish yourself for complaining about a comic full of humans and aliens being difficult to visually parse. What the hell?
Yeah. We didn't have Nova in this one, so.
I mean, technically. I found this one easier to manage, though, and this will sound bad, but part of it is because the Guardians of the Galaxy comic and fighting with it kind of taught me that I don't need to catch every millimeter. You know, you can kind of get the overall impression that this is a fight. Also, this comic ended up being much more verbal in just the heavy use of onomatopoeia, which actually got to a level that felt kind of silly to me. But I can't lie, it did help me parse the, scenes that I was seeing, because I knew if doom, doom, doom happened in this scene, something was getting smashed 3 times, and I could probably find what was doing the smashing in the scene. But yeah, the onomatopoeia I think it really showed that this person was probably a fan of the cartoons who wrote that or designed those layouts, because it felt very cartoony, the way the visuals and the sound effects were presented, as it were. So that may have been why it was a little more accessible as well. I enjoyed this one more than the Guardians of the Galaxy, which I'll admit I was kind of surprised to do. But I liked the storyline better a little bit.
Yeah, and not getting too much into it in the spoilers territory, this plot was awesome. This just 6-issue arc. There's a lot to unpack in it, and a lot of, it adds a lot more depth to what you would normally see from a Transformers comic.
And I particularly enjoyed, did I bring up Steven Universe on my first recording? I think I did. I'm going to go for 2 for 2.
Okay.
It wasn't a quiz. Everyone was quiet.
We all just went,
That was many beers ago. The question of organic versus inorganic life and what strengths and weaknesses does each one have is a common theme that I enjoyed seeing in this Transformers comic, in part because I really enjoy Steven Universe.
I mean, to that end, though, are the Transformers inorganic? I mean, just because we perceive machines as being inorganic, they are sentient. So are they?
They've never really gone in depth on their nervous system, right, or
how
anything like
work.
That. Yeah.
Well, that was one of the things when we were watching the cartoon movie that you brought up, Jen, is you were like, so Cybertron, how can you tell the difference between what's a person and what's a building? And I'm like, well, the Transformers are talking, the buildings are not. And then
maybe
there was a building that turned into a robot, and I'm like, well, screw it.
I don't know. All bets are off.
You want to get to it at a fundamental level, though. We scientists currently don't know what makes something alive. Sometimes some atoms get really excited, and we don't know why those do it, not the other ones. Yeah. So maybe all the buildings are alive.
The fun part is when you have a Transformer get out of a ship, and the ship then transforms into another Transformer, and they both walk out of the hangar, and the entire base turns into another Transformer and walks out of the city. Right? 26 miles tall and transforms into another robot.
So what's the protocol for one Transformer being inside another Transformer?
Consent.
Consent. That's all we care about. Is if it's consensual, it's fine.
And how many like adolescent transformer jets are like, I don't want to carry around other people just because I can fly. That shouldn't be my fucking problem, Dad. Like, how much strife is there in Transformer society?
Well, or fear. Like, what do you mean I have to have other Transformers inside of me?
And I'm responsible for flying them places? What if I crash and we all die? I can't do this, man.
Why was I born butt plug a con? Speaking of butt plugs, let's talk about the Michael Bay movie.
Nice segue.
Nice segue.
So I don't even know. Like, we watched it again because Jen hadn't seen it.
I had never seen it, and frankly, I have to admit that it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was still bad, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
This is also going to be a theme this season. Tune in for our episode on Green Lantern.
Graphically novel. This could have been worse.
Oh shit!
I think
that's
that's
a
a lot
great
of
tag.
That's like season 4 in general, I think, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's
oh man, it's.
I remember it being a lot harder to take because I guess I hadn't seen as many properties turned into horrible things up until then. Or if I did, it was like Roger Corman's Fantastic Four, which we already knew was going to be bad, and David Hasselhoff as Nick Fury, those kind of things. But the only thing I really remembered about it was hating that at one point an Autobot pees on someone. Like, that was all I really could remember before going into it. And I still hated that part, that you still should not have Autobots peeing on people. It shouldn't be something that the series needs.
Yeah.
And a very young actual cannibal, Shia LaBeouf.
Who was the highlight for me.
Yeah.
And all I have to say is I had heard so many things about this movie, and one of the things that I heard was about Megan Fox as an actress. And while she is not that great, she was not as bad as I was told she was.
Well, and this is also the second Michael Bay property that you have seen her in, the first being when we watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and she was April O'Neil.
Oh my God, she sucked ass in that movie. Everyone sucked ass in that movie.
I think her IMDb should have actor in quotes, despite the fact that she killed in Jennifer's body.
I haven't seen that one yet. It's on my catching up on horror list. But the one that I was really impressed with Megan Fox in was her run on New Girl. When there's a season where Jess is gone and she's the roommate. She's the roommate that moves in, and she was actually really funny in that. But yeah, Megan Fox aside, Bear, what were your first thoughts when you watched the Michael Bay Transformers movie?
When I first saw it, and I can't remember if I saw it in the theater or not, I was actually really impressed with the introduction, how they did the transformations, how they explained the
how the Hoover Dam was built?
Well, no. How they explained how everybody why they were making Bumblebee into not a Beetle anymore. We're basically, it's like, oh, we can just scan a vehicle and then change, how we do that. And I was like, okay, I can handle that. I can live with that. Having Soundwave running around, just being an annoying little shit as opposed to this great big hulking robot that, has itty bitty little tape decks pop out of him. I was just like, this is awkward, and then we put him in, basically make him a toaster. I was absolutely thrilled with that. And then the whole Hoover Dam thing started, and I hated it after that. And I did not hate it enough to write a song about it, though.
That's a level.
Yeah.
That's a new level of hatred for it. You got to really hate it to do something like that.
Yeah. I think somebody else here wrote a song about it.
Yeah. For me, my hatred has over time sort of coalesced into a different understanding of the movie. I think now, upon further viewing. The way I feel about it is if they would have just named it something else with different character names, same movie, just name everybody something different, call it maybe Robots That Turn Into Other Stuff or something like that.
GoBots.
Yeah, it could have been GoBots.
Could have been GoBots. It would have made a fine popcorn movie if it weren't tied to this rich history and these established characters.
Jen, what were your first?
My first. Well, it was, I think we watched it after watching the animated movie.
We watched Bumblebee first, then the animated
Right.
movie, and we finished with the Michael Bay Transformers.
Watching Bumblebee first helped because I at least knew on sight like a character. Like
Who was my favorite growing up, by the way?
I could,
was
like
my
I got
favorite.
it that like Bumblebee was the yellow one. This is, and vaguely like a bee in the Michael Bay movie. But the thing about the animated movie that I had a hard time following was I had no idea who was a good guy, who was a bad guy. You couldn't tell.
They were little symbols.
The symbols are very small.
They're very small, and I don't know they never say this is a good guy symbol, this is a bad guy symbol, and so I was like, okay, I don't know who should I be rude? I don't, whatever. And I felt like
also every time I watch football.
If they're the Dallas Cowboys, they're the bad guy.
You gotta tell me what color their shirts are. Like, that is where we're starting.
Right. So I felt like in the original Michael Bay Transformers movie, I had kind of a similar issue as far as knowing, like, when there was a fight, first of all, trying to follow any of that action. Second of all, so many explosions, you can't see what's going on. And so it was like, I don't know, like, okay, I'm just having shit thrown on the screen in front of me. I don't know what's going on. It's bad. I know that because everybody's screaming and there are things blowing up.
Although not always, because we did realize, like, there are, like, giant Transformer fights that are starting and people are in the street just, like, staring at them like, that's a thing.
Yeah.
And it's not until, like, it's not until, like, buildings start collapsing that they're like, oh no, we better run.
We
We're in
chose poorly to
danger.
stand outside and gawk.
Yeah.
Right.
That giant ball of tinfoil is going to beat up that other giant ball of tinfoil.
There
Yeah.
might be repercussions that could affect us negatively.
Guess we better go get that vaccine.
Dang.
Michael Bay loved spending a lot of money animating really intricately moving Transformers parts that apparently did fuck all. The crumpled ball of foil really brought that visual to my head. Like, every inch was like the Matrix code on like every key, but no, just might as well have been crunched up foil.
Yeah. So let's move to a high note. Bumblebee,
Yay!
which was actually a fun movie.
It was fun.
Liked it.
Do you think the focus on just one Transformer, like making one Transformer kind of your whole focus and why you're following that story? I mean, they kind of did that in the beginning of the Transformers, and then when the other ones show up, it becomes a shit show.
Yeah.
Because that's when a dog pees on a robot, and
Yep.
the robot learns to pee on things.
Yeah.
What aspects of Bumblebee did you all appreciate? I guess we should start with, did you appreciate Bumblebee more? I'm assuming. But if you did, what aspects did you appreciate more on one than the other?
Well, I'm going to jump right in because I think that I feel like it gave the story some breathing room. So you were able to get more information about the overall story and the other characters in Bumblebee, which you did not get at all in Transformers. You know, it was like alluded to, they kind of talked about stuff, but in Bumblebee, it like really lays it all out. And maybe when you are focusing on one character, you have more time to, say, okay, and this is how this character fits into that overarching story. I thought it was so much more well done. It was really a good movie. I enjoyed it. And I think that it really gave me more background on Transformers and Cybertron and the whole world than anything else that we saw movie-wise.
And I felt, teeny spoiler here, I felt that the use of the memory loss was a really good way to get expository without being expository and lectury and like awkward. And I agree. I felt like this was it was a good movie to really familiarize yourself with the the series. I enjoyed a lot about it.
It reminded me a lot of E.T. actually.
Yeah. It had an Amblin feel.
It did. You're right. Yeah, Bear?
I actually am a failure and did not get around to watching the Bumblebee movie yet.
He gave you
I
an
know.
extra hour.
An extra hour.
Got that shit on.
Well, I think we can all say you are missing out because
Absolutely.
if you have watched the Tire Fire Michael Bay movie and not Bumblebee, you
I've seen like 3 of the Tire Fire Michael Bay movies, and
No, you should do yourself a favor.
yeah, and you need to go watch. I mean, I did watch Transformers War for Cybertron.
right, which is the new Netflix.
Yeah, the new Netflix property, and if you haven't seen that, go watch it. It is superb.
You watched that, didn't you, Ben?
Oh yeah, I watched that right away.
Yeah, I see.
I loved it. There's a lot of talk in the Transformers community, and there is one about about whether or not that was good or not. But I think that what they need to remember is like that now they're not the target audience. We're not. Our kids are, and but they also wanted to make something for the fans as well. So there's a nod to that, but you can't spend all the money on not the target market. It was amazing for what it was.
You can't get Warren Ellis to do all of your properties. Like, he's done G.I. Joe and he's done Castlevania at this point. Like, I would be interested in seeing him give the if you haven't seen Warren Ellis did G.I. Joe Resolute, and he kills like 6 Joes that in the first 10 minutes like of this 3-episode series.
We need to add that to the list.
G.I. Joe?
Yeah.
I don't think it's on our master list at all.
Nope.
I want to do anything that has Warren Ellis involved.
What was that?
We could talk about the Transformers G.I. Joe crossover that happened like twice.
That's true.
Yes.
Yep. Because they were both Marvel properties.
They were both toy commercials.
Also
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Leading over. That is an uncomfortable element of the movie. Like, this is just like, especially seeing how it emotionally affected, and hearing how it emotionally affected people as children. Like, this was just psychological manipulation of children to sell toys.
Yes.
100%.
Wow.
So were most cartoons out of the 80s.
I mean.
And 90s.
Mm-hmm.
My Pet Monster, My Little Pony, Strawberry Shortcake, Shirt Tails, Glowworms. These were all just
Wuzzles.
Yeah, these were all just gigantic commercials designed to make kids go, "Mom, Dad, I want you to buy that for me."
Jen sitting here like, those were certainly words.
Yeah.
And I'm just over the edge of that because I was into the Captain Planet and the DuckTales and the Tailspin and things that were not quite as merchandise driven. Sorry, babe. What were you saying?
I mean, it was crazy because you almost had to wait for the merch to come out.
See, I was a fan of the show that was the most blatant. You must buy the toys. And it was called Captain Power. And Captain Power was a space opera, basically, but it had, like, ship fights. And you had your ship that had a little trigger on it with a little guy in the cockpit. And if you didn't shoot the screen during the show and it felt like whatever wave come out of the TV, your little guy would eject out of the cockpit and your toy would. Basically, you were interacting with the show. And you had to shoot it.
Yeah, you had find friendlies or tag with.
Yes, yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is bonkers.
Have you ever seen a movie called Friday the 13th?
I have.
What a point.
Okay, sorry, 3. Go ahead.
Oh no, it's cool. I just this is something for Bear to think about if he decides to watch Bumblebee later. I would recommend it. The thing about Bumblebee is that it's still officially canon in the Bayverse. It happens in the same universe that the Michael Bay Transformers movie happens in, and Michael Bay is the producer on Bumblebee. But it's so much more faithful to the characters, the source material, and the way everybody looks. And think about if you could retroactively take that level of faithfulness and that level of fan service and that level of amazing storytelling and have put that retroactively into the first Transformers movie and where we could be now had we moved from that starting point.
That's a really excellent point.
Also, the champ is here. Because John Cena's in that motherfucker.
I'm not going to be able to see him though.
That's true.
Yeah.
He is
Who's
wearing
that?
camouflage. 'cause
Who
he's
is
in
that
general.
talking?
Yeah. Yeah, side note, there is not a single movie I've seen John Cena in that I did not enjoy him in.
He's fantastic. He really is.
Like he has minor parts in Trainwreck and Sisters, and both of them are hilarious.
Absolutely hilarious.
I love that
Safe
he's
word
willing
is
to
keep
take
going.
one out.
Yeah, I mean, and
Yeah.
he is just in interviews and stuff too. Like he's like, yeah, I was a wrestler that became a movie star, and when I was a wrestler, I made fun of wrestlers that became movie stars. Like that was how I made my chops. Was basically dogging on Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yep.
And then I did the exact same thing.
It's all part of the kayfabe.
Yep.
Yep.
So, any other questions before we go to our final? Because I have a 2-part for this one.
Ooh. Fancy.
All right. So 3, I'm going to assume the first part. I'm going to assume you're going to keep reading Transformers graphic novels and comic books as they continue. But will you continue watching Transformers media if Bumblebee is the new baseline? Will that bring you to the theaters?
If Bumblebee is the new baseline, that could actually, I think that could get me into a theater. They elevated that particular property so much. Part of the reason I didn't like the Bayverse movies also had to do with the fact that, you know, the cartoons focused on the robot, and the Michael Bay movie largely focused on Shia LaBeouf, which is fine, but that's not the story. And when you take that same formula and now you are getting to know one character, it really benefits from having the human interest story. It benefits from having other people in it, because now you're focusing on this one item. I think that moving forward, if they were to use that same kind of formula, it'd be something that'd be worth watching.
Sarah, comic and movies.
I mean, I don't know that I am invested enough in the franchise to keep reading the comics, but if there was a comic I was going to continue, it would probably be this one. A, because I know they're going to keep coming into my house. B, because I do find the plot line and the question at the core of it really interesting and fascinating. There was enough about the layout of the comic and how it was drawn and things like that I'm probably not tracking it down on my own. But yeah, it'll come. Like I said, it'll come into my house. I'll have access.
Okay, how about the movie?
As far as the movie, I would say much more heartily yes, that if Bumblebee is the new standard, I would be much more interested in that. The treatment of the female human character was just honestly quite a bit better, and it was a better human as well as robot storyline. So yeah, I can see myself continuing in that vein. Yeah.
Fair.
I mean, I would probably, I don't know if I would actually go to a theater to see it immediately. I'm probably going to wait, see what reviews end up being like, you know,
If theaters even continue being a thing.
Yeah, if theaters even continue existing after this plague. I'm just a little gun shy because I've seen one of my most beloved series get put through the ringer. G.I. Joe was terrible too. Like there's like all these, you know, great toys that we grew up with as kids that they turned into movies that they absolutely ruined in the movies.
If before editing happens for our release in January, happy 2021, by the way, everyone. Obviously, we're great and have flying cars and everything's happy. I may put a postscript, just like a few minutes of your thoughts on Bumblebee if you can get it watched in the next week.
Editor's note, he did not get it watched in a week.
Okay. I would be really interested because I know you're invested in it and I know you've been a longtime fan. I think it'd be cathartic for you.
To finally be like, there's something good.
Right?
It won't hurt you.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing a new movie, you know, another movie in this following Bumblebee in that kind of direction. I think I would enjoy it. And Sarah, to your point, I really felt like it kind of hit the sweet spot of the human story as well as the robot story. You know, it was good. It didn't, the human story didn't overshadow, you know, and I think that they used both to further the characters' storylines. As far as the comic, I mean, I enjoyed it. It's probably not something I'm going to seek out future episodes of, especially while we're still doing this podcast because I have enough homework as it is. But I did enjoy it, and I was surprised. I was surprised that I enjoyed it as much as I did. So, you know.
So after the second Transformers movie, Michael Bay movie, I didn't watch anymore. And there was a particular trip back during my LARP days when we used to pile in a van and have a 6-hour drive to somewhere to go pretend to be vampires for a weekend, where I was in the van driving, and my friend Danny Hennigan was explaining to me the plot of the newest Transformers movie, which I think was 3, where there were like eggs, like the Transformers were hatching out of eggs at one point and they were underwater, and it just sounded very like alien. And so I never watched anything past the second one and then Bumblebee, enough people talked about it that it got me into it. So I think the movie, absolutely, if it follows Bumblebee, it's not one of the properties I'm going to actively be like excited about or like following. But I will probably, if there's nothing else in the theater, and I want to go see a movie, it'll get me into the theater. As for the comic, it's on my list. It's just further down my list. I loved Transformers when I was a kid, but it was the beginning of a long tradition of other things grabbing my attention, like very quickly. So, Transformers was first, but He-Man and the Masters of the Universe were like much bigger for me. And then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was even bigger than that. Like, it was huge for me. So that's why I will still kind of follow some of those properties to this day.
Do we have He-Man on the list anywhere? Because
we did, and I think it dropped off.
That's gonna be an episode.
Well, and they're making a new He-Man movie.
Yeah.
Well, good, because Dolph Lundgren was a thing that happened in my childhood that I'm.
We'll watch that one. We will watch that one.
Skeletor just looked like he was a lucha libre. So yeah, I mean, if I have the opportunity, idly, I would totally keep going with the IDW comics. They definitely piqued my interest. But yeah, like you said, Jen, there's just so many other things, especially that we found in this, that I'm now actively pursuing, that my time for reading is so, with all the other media and everything, and Cyberpunk 2077 swallowing my life right now. That
there are only so many minutes in the day.
Yeah.
And you must use them wisely.
Right. So 3 and 6. Oh, go ahead.
I did want to just point out that the thing that's so weird is that chronologically speaking, Bumblebee came before the other Michael Bay movies. But so we go from the source material saying things like freedom is the right of all sentient beings, all the way up to racist ice cream truck Transformers.
Oh no, I forgot about that.
Oh man,
I thought that hadn't come up on purpose. I thought we were skirting from the super racist element of the Bayformer universe. Ooh, glad we got to there though. It's important.
What was the name of the ice cream truck in it was the car series on PlayStation? Twisted Metal. Yeah, what was the name of that? Sweet Tooth.
Yeah.
It's like Sweet Tooth was dropped into an actual movie.
I can't hear the song Paint It Black without thinking about Twisted Metal.
I'm sorry.
Spectre all day, every day.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Oh, okay.
Misses that go through walls.
I've never heard of this. So.
Oh, it's an old video game series that was basically like a demolition derby, and one of the characters was an ice cream truck that could set people on fire, and like the top was a creepy clown face.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Because when you started talking about it, all I could think of was the movie Cars, the Pixar movie Cars. And I'm like, what? I don't remember.
I would pay for a Twisted Metal version of the Pixar movie Cars.
Oh, sign me up.
That's right. Because Axel's the most like confusing character in that universe. Because Axel was literally a dude that is in a giant wheel, like strapped into it. Anyway, on that note, 3 and Sarah, thank you so much for coming on and dropping some knowledge on us and helping us out to kick off season 4.
It's so good to talk to you guys, and I know it's not the pandemic talking. I just love talking to you guys.
Agreed. I I just want to put one final shameless plug in, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
We discussed why I chose this particular graphic novel. I think it's a great jumping off point. That said, Lost Light is probably the best Transformers story arc that I've ever read. It's got quantum drive engines, it's got space travel, the whole thing. It's very sci-fi. It's very political. The characters are given full 3D treatment. It's great. So
cool. I think on this show, the only other one that we've briefly discussed was when Starscream gets the Allspark.
Yeah. Oh
yeah. Awesome.
It was a pretty epic moment in that comic book.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. For everybody else, welcome to the new season. Join us next week when we'll be talking about Deadly Class.
It won't be that bad.
Join us next week where I get to feel awkward again while Josh tries to compliment me.
We'll see how that goes throughout the season.
Oh, and there's a special. There's a special for Deadly Class.
Special
celebration.
Right, because it will be not only Jenn's birthday, but also our guest host, Dan Schaefer. It will be his birthday. So double birthday, Deadly Class celebration as we talk about Assassin High School. So, until next time, take it away, Vandello.
Come with me, I'll tell a story that you might have heard before. Graphically novel, but the same old trouble. Villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same. Come at me, and I'll show you something you ain't never seen before. Right or wrong, or can't we all just get along? My mask is no different than yours. Pretty pictures on the screen, but nothing's ever as it seems. Hero or villain, loved or hated by millions. Maybe it's wrong, maybe it's right, but you don't want to see my